Well, hello there. Good Sunday morning to you. This is North by Northwest on CBC Radio 1. My name is Pietro Paolo. It's good to be with you this morning. Coming up on North by Northwest this hour, a look at the intersecting points between madness and genius. Now, if you think about the history of the arts, it's not hard to come up with names of great artistic geniuses who struggled with mental illness in their lifetimes. Think of the composer Robert Schumann, or the painter Vincent van Gogh, or more recently, singers like Kurt Cobain. Well, today we'll hear about a new collaboration between a BC theatre artist and a UBC research team. It's an interesting collaboration that explores the issues around mental illness and artistic genius, and we'll hear about that thanks to the excellent documentary work of journalist Pamela Post a bit later on in the show. And this half hour, geotagging. Now, it's sometimes said that there is a fine line between madness and genius. Well, a talented BC artist and a UBC research team are exploring these issues in a unique collaboration. Victoria Maxwell is an actor, she's a playwright, and an educator from North Vancouver. She was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in the 1990s, and she was in her mid-20s at the time, and she had just started to score small TV and film roles alongside some pretty big names like Johnny Depp and David Duchovny and John Travolta, but her mental illness derailed all that, and she spent the next 10 years experiencing bouts of madness and resisting the diagnosis of the same illness that she had grown up watching her mother suffer. Now, Maxwell recently opened her own one-woman play. It's called That's Just Crazy Talk. It's a deeply personal, often hilarious, and sometimes heartbreaking account of mental illness and of the trail that it's blazed through her family tree. Pamela Post was at the play's recent Vancouver debut, and she brings us this feature story on the art and the science behind the production.
I'm running. Faster, faster. Zipping, zooming, zing. I see sneakers. They're orange. That means the devil's coming.
On a lit stage in front of a packed house at Vancouver's Granville Island Performance Works, Victoria Maxwell hits the ground running, literally, as she takes her audience inside both the hospital walls and her own tortured psyche during a bout of psychosis.
The cosmos, me, the world, we're one, and Am I in the emergency ward? I take off. I overhear my father. Bloody idiots, help me. He grabs my shoulder, pushes me into a room, door slams. I can see my father.
Her body hurls through space and contorts on the stage, a theatrical reliving of a very real incident in her mid-20s that saw her fleeing from her father and hospital staff, lost in a floridly psychotic state, but one that to her was imbued with a profoundly spiritual meaning.
This is my chance to find enlightenment, but first I must eliminate my ego, kill my ego, find scissors, cut out my ego, and then I'll be free. I lunge at a row of cotton swab and bandages. They tackle me. I scramble on my knees, but they're trying to kick my leg. I try to escape their clutches, but they pull at my pants, my t-shirt stretching it long, and somehow I end up lying face down on a gurney, steel safety bars up. Both sides. Left wrist strapped, leather cuff. Right wrist locked, leather cuff. And my butt, cold as Arctic ice, hanging out of what must be the most humiliating piece of clothing known to man, the peppermint green hospital gown. A nurse is tapping a needle the size of a frickin' 7-Eleven straw. Then, wet, cool cotton and jab. A rush of images, regrets, and dreams kaleidoscope. And in that moment, I realize I've gone crazy. What everybody calls crazy. God.
Victoria Maxwell named her by turns hilarious and heartbreaking one-woman play, That's Just Crazy Talk. She laughingly claims membership in a club that has earned the right to use the C word to describe mental illness.
She talks crazy talk. She talks crazy talk.
This is the thing, inappropriate humor, it's a double standard. I can make jokes about it because I have a mental illness. I can't make jokes about being Italian because I am not Italian.
She talks crazy talk.
That's Just Crazy Talk is both an homage and an elegy to Maxwell's childhood that was marked with madness, but also a tribute to a family held together with love, at a time when mental illness in the family was usually sealed tightly in the closet. When Maxwell is given her diagnosis, it's just the latest spurt from what she calls her genetic leaky valve.
The doctor says it's rapid cycling mixed state bipolar disorder with mild temporal lobe epilepsy, generalized anxiety disorder with psychotic features. Yeah, easy for him to say. You'd think it would be easy for me to say, considering how many of us in our family have something like it. Me, mom, cousin, uncle, great-uncle, great-grandmother, great-grandfather, cousin.
And while Maxwell's family may have had a leaky valve, part of what she hopes the play will encourage others to do is acknowledge that having a mental illness is both common and treatable.
Most people I know have met somebody who has had a bout with clinical depression, has dealt with anxiety, an eating disorder, know someone that might have schizophrenia or Tourette's. The statistics are quite staggering, and the reason that I find it sad is because when people start to get well, they don't talk about it because the consequences are still real. But what that does is it perpetuates the image that the only people with mental illness are very, very ill people who never get well.
Manic depression. Scary. Unlike those cuddlier, friendlier terms. You know, batty, balmy, buggy, crazy, dippy, daffy, dotty, freaky, kooky, loony, loopy, nutty, screwy, wacky. Oh, and the O's. Cuckoo, gonzo, loco, schizo, psycho, wacko, weirdo. Food metaphors. Bananas, crackers, nuts, and fruitcake. And who likes fruitcake?
Maxwell's presence on stage, her brilliantly witty and dark script, along with her adept and energetic one-woman performance, is testimony to the fact that people with mental illness can and do get well, and that genius can live alongside madness in the same human psyche. Dr. Erin Mihalik, a psychologist at UBC's Department of Psychiatry, is leading a research team looking into such issues as bipolar disorder and creativity and the narrative of mental illness. The play is part of that research.
We've known for centuries that the prevalence of bipolar disorder is higher in people who have high rates of artistic output.
Insiders, like us, have a secret language, a Morse code, more like a morose code. OCD, BD, BD1, BD2, DID, ADD, ADHD, PTSD.
So musicians, performers, artists. But we really didn't know anything about the mechanism underlying this. The literature is actually really poor. And so what we wanted to do was start to explore in a really systematic way, what are the mechanisms underpinning this correlation between creativity and madness?
I mean, the newspapers always splash some headline like, schizophrenic man attacks police. They never splash the headline, diabetic man attacks police. Lactose intolerant teen tortures house. They never say those people weren't taking their medications. I know, there are holes in my argument, but still.
If we look at bipolar spectrum disorders, I think we can probably say that about 6 to 8% of the Canadian population could be diagnosed as having some kind of bipolarity. Is that always associated with great impairment in their lives? Not always. That's not always the case. So I'd like it to be viewed perhaps not as an either-or, but as a spectrum that we fall on somewhere, and also understanding that there are sometimes positive sides of having a little bit of bipolarity or a little bit of mental illness, and that it isn't necessarily always a negative connotation.
Maxwell's play is mercifully free of anything that reeks of the earnestly educational. It's a sustained piece of theater that keeps you riveted by its comedy, tragedy, and pacing. but mostly by her powerful storytelling and her portrait of growing up in a little family of 3, rocked by her mother's serious mental illness. Scenes painted vividly, like the first time, at 8 years old, she visits her mum in the psych ward.
My mom's got deep, dark circles under her eyes, and her skin is elephant gray, but her hair isn't sticking out anymore like it did at home. I hold her bony hand. It's so cold and pointy. Dad whispers something in her ear, kisses her on her forehead. All she does is blink.
Maxwell calls the play a love letter to her parents, particularly her dad, Jack, who she calls the Rock, a gruff, Archie Bunker, profane kind of dad, right down to his tweed chair, but one who will stop at nothing to protect his wife and daughter from the barbs and rejection that come with prejudice. Still, in grade 3, little Vicky is chased home by the school bully, a miscreant who taunts her about her psycho mom.
Stupid! He pushes me, punches me, pokes me till I'm down. You got a psycho for a mom, huh? That's not true. Your mom is so ugly. What's it like having a freak for a mom, huh? His face is spitting close. I can see up his nose into his beady gray eyes, and I run! The thugs are laughing, peeing themselves, but Danny, he's following, chasing me all the way home, and it's uphill. Seriously, the whole entire way is uphill. I live in North Vancouver at the top of Upper Lonsdale. I'm pounding the pavement, glancing when I can for block parent signs. Nothing! What is this neighborhood, Surrey? I jig, jag, cut through the None's yard, but still he's on my tail, gaining on me. This kid, even in grade 3, he's the size of a tree. Finally, I reach our shabby rented house, front door, locked, and I just wail on the wood. It opens. I collapse into the hallway. Very melodramatic, but for a reason. This boy man is terrifying. I'm peeking out from behind our dingy white kitchen curtains. Danny's huffing, puffing, standing in the yard, but he's been caught. My dad, the Rock, remember, just lights into him, just lets him have it. Don't you ever, if you so much as bleep, breathe near her, I'll bleep, scare the bleep, bleep out of you so much, so help me, you smarmy little bleep, bleep, you'll never bleep. Straight again. I don't hear everything. I don't even understand everything. But I don't care. The Rock came to my rescue. He always does.
Yeah, it really is a love letter to my dad and my mom. And we had a lot of dysfunction in our family. Somehow there was still an incredible amount of love I felt, particularly from my dad and from my mom. My mom just had a lot of bad hands dealt to her. It always stuns me how much struggle a family can go through and how much my parents struggled, yet they were still able to give me this message that who I was and what I had was totally fine.
She is a great narrator. She's also very honest and candid about the really difficult times she's had and, the very dark and bleak places she's been to.
I can't sleep because I don't want to go into it. It's pointless. I'm stupid. A loser, an idiot. I'm stupid, a loser, an idiot. I'm stupid, a loser, an idiot. This has been in my head, my body for weeks now. And therapy, journaling, support groups, talking and more talking, and nothing makes any difference. I keep staring at the table. Pick up the knife. And then it starts. That slithering buzz in my head. Slowly at first. Tiny dances of delusion. Melted ideas. I've been here before. Know where it goes. Cords of light extend from my belly. A cat pops up, then disappears. This only gets worse and it won't go away. This only gets worse and it... Hi, Lori. Sorry it's so early, but you said to call if I ever... My best friend drives me to emergency. And there, once again, I will be admitted to my mom's old stomping ground. A2, the acute psychiatric ward. By the way, there is nothing cute about a psych ward.
Victoria Maxwell navigated through the storm of her own madness, but it was a rocky voyage to acceptance, finding doctors she trusted, the right meds, and therapy that keeps her well. It's been over 10 years since her last psychotic episode. She fell in love, got married, and bought a house on the Sunshine Coast. Her dad, The Rock, died 3 years ago, and her mum soldiers on.
My mom's living in an apartment now. Sardine can, really. And she's doing the best she can. Mental illness has a way of coming back sometimes. But her resilience, out of the park. I don't know anybody who could be this anxious for so long and survive. She's like a hummingbird on cocaine. I get my hardiness from my dad and my mom.
Today, Maxwell performs, writes, and travels the world speaking about her escapades as a bipolar princess. Her words.
And I always believe the more personal a story is, the more universal the application. It's like finding family members all over North America because people come up and say, "You've just told my story." And for myself who felt very isolated in this experience, to find other people that have run down the street naked, who have been tied to a gurney, it's quite comforting. So it's always wonderful, feeling that we find a tribe that's remained somewhat invisible, but is finally finding voice.
She talks crazy talk. She talks crazy talk. She'll tell you anything. She could make a man ruin. She talk mumbo jumbo.
Thanks to journalist Pamela Post for that piece. It was called That's Just Crazy Talk. And the play, That's Just Crazy Talk, has been performed in Toronto and Vancouver, with more dates planned for Victoria, Toronto again, and then some U.S. cities. And if you'd like to know more about the play and the work of the UBC research team, you can go to this address, CREST.BD.ca. I'll say it again, CREST.BD.ca.